We are back for another waiver wire video, and as we get deeper into the second half of the season, we're on full lookout for these second half breakouts that are going to help us carry us to a fantasy championship. We're going to go over a potential breakout catcher to add, a post-hype player that looks like he's finally starting to bring it all together, a prospect to stash, a former #1 overall pick who's playing a lot better lately, and one of my favorite man-crushed pitchers this year who I think can just be valuable in all 12 league teams that close out the second half of the year. You know we're also going to have that shallow league segment, and you know we're going to recap my previous waiver wire video from 2 weeks ago to see how those guys are doing and see if there's a punishment. As always, I appreciate everyone being here. Thank you. I love to hear you guys' feedback. I love to see your guys' questions down below. I'll answer everyone every single video. If you don't like something, let me know. I like to improve it. I like to get these videos. I like to make them better. So without further ado, I'm Chris, and welcome to Number 2 Sports. Okay, boys, first up on the waiver wire list, we haven't had a catcher in a long time. We're going Drake Baldwin from the Atlanta Braves. So I know the catcher position is crazy deep this year, which is why we really haven't talked about that many. I know we've talked about Augustin and a little bit of Dylan Dingler, but so many fantasy managers are probably just content with their backstop that they're not really looking to make a change. And honestly, that explains why Augustin Ramirez is still only 60% owned. But back to Baldwin, he's become a full-time player after Braves finally decided to bench Osuna, so he's getting reps at the catcher position and at DH. His full-time gig should even be more secure if the Braves do end up training Osuna and or Sean Murphy. Both are really popular names floating around at the trade deadline this year, and Baldwin has been exceptional. He's stashing a 284, 353, 479 line with 11 home runs. That batting average is what separates him from other productive catchers this year. Will Smith and Goodwin are the only two others hitting 280 and up with 10 plus homers. It's honestly not that often that you don't have to worry about your catcher or your catching position just absolutely destroying your average throughout the week. His savant page is Taylor Swift red, meaning that all his expected stats are right around his actuals, and it means he's not overwhelmed by major league pitching at all this year. Baldwin has top of the league bat speed, average exit velocity, hard hit percentage, and his strikeouts and whiffs are completely under control. A major thing to be weary about with young hitters, and he's just crushing it. Even just looking at his advanced game logs from the last 2 to 3 games, he's had field outs with an exit velocity of 110.9, 99.8, 98.7, 101.3, and 100.8, all traveling to the outfield. So it's not just these ground balls that he's driving in the dirt to short or second base. It's good contact. And the reason that he's making such good contact is that he rarely swings at pitches outside the zone, which means he just has a great eye and great discipline, which is really rare for a player of his age and at this point in his career. Baldwin's outside swing percentage is only 28.3%, which is great. I talked about him in my prior video about his value set to soar after the deadline if things fall his way, so I guess I'm technically doubling down on that notion. He's easily a top 10 catcher for me rest of season, and I would consider adding him over guys like JT, Kirk, O'Hop, Langoliers, and even Austin Wells. I just really think the upside is too great. Next up, we have a guy who's kind of being forgotten about, but that's Jesus Sanchez, or some people call Jesus Sanchez. So he's never really been able to fully put it together in his major league career. He's now 27 years old. So again, all that potential breakout, all that hype is definitely gone at this point in his career. But his overall stat line this year is solid. He has all the physical tools to make a leap, and I think some of the changes, some of the tweaks that he's made this year are starting to pay off, and I think they could be really successful for him over the second half of the year. Sanchez increased his bat speed, which is huge, and he's pulling the ball in the air way more often, and as you know, the more that you pull the ball in the air, the greater chance that it leads to consistent success. Part of that change is due to where he's making the point of connection with his bat on the baseball. It's increased 5 inches towards the front of the plate, so when he's making contact, he's able to pull through it more. So he's pulling it for him because he's a lefty. He's able to connect the ball and go to right field. If he was a righty, you can connect the ball, go to the left field. Instead of if you're back on the plate, you'll shoot it oppo taco. So essentially, he's just getting ahead of pitches and being able to pull the ball more frequently. That's resulted in some insanely hard hit balls this year with a max exit velocity over 115 miles per hour. He's decreased his strikeout rate, and his expected stats should be saying that he's doing better than his actuals. Not sure if he's going to get traded at the deadline. I have seen his name float around in some trade rumors, but if he does, I think that'll only boost his value, getting out of that crappy lineup in Miami and getting around a contender where they have to pitch to him better. He can get knocked in more and have more chances for RBIs. There could be something here with Sanchez, and I'm really intrigued. I'm really excited to see how it plays out to close out the year. Next up, we have a prospect to stash from the good old Marooners, and that's Tyler Locklear, the first baseman. So honestly, this looked a lot better before the Mariners went out and traded for Josh Naylor. What a great trade, by the way. Go Mariners. But I still want to mention Locklear just because of how ridiculous, how utterly insane he's being at AAA right now. And really, the Mariners do need another bat in their lineup. Unless they go and get Suarez, that would be sweet. There is still another hole that he could fill. But man, Locklear is 9 for 9, 4 home runs, 2 doubles, 6 runs, 9 RBI, 2 walks, and a stolen base in his last 11 plate appearances. If that wasn't crazy enough, if we take a step back even further, since July 1st, he has a 1.409 OPS, 7 home runs, 16 RBI, 5 doubles, and 5 steals, with a 21% strikeout rate. The dude is raking. And a lot of it probably comes from the adjustments made in June, where he adjusted a high, noisy hand placement pre-pitch to a more lower relaxed position, and the advanced stats after this change speak for themselves. He's went from 87 to 95 miles per hour on his average exit velocity. His hard hit percentage has jumped from 38 to 54%, and both his barrel and his launch angle have both went up. Who knows what will happen? He might not even be a Mariner post deadline, depending what they do with Suarez or if they add somebody else. I'm not sure, but I like him and I wanted to mention him. So thanks for listening to my probably non-fantasy related TED Talk about my favorite team, the Seattle Mariners. Also, since we're on the topic of the Mariners, let's give a quick shout out to Dominic Canzone. Naylor also logjams him to probably a strict platoon role. But once I see how the deadline unfolds and who's getting bumped, he's definitely someone to keep an eye on. He's shortened his swing, he's increased his bat speed, and that power looks legit. Next up, we have the center fielder from the Colorado Rockies, Mickey Moniak, former #1 overall draft pick way back in 2016 by the Philadelphia Phillies. You could say that he has not lived up to that potential at all. But finally, 9 years later, he's started to pop off a little bit and put together a career year for himself. And maybe that has something to do with the abrupt ending to his Angels career, where he won in arbitration in February, earning a $2 million salary when the Angels only wanted to pay him $1.5 million. And then 2 days later, Moniak was unexpectedly released by the organization. Moniak has moved his stance closer to the plate, allowing the barrel to cover more of the strike zone, also while increasing his bat speed to prevent himself from getting jammed up on pitches inside. He still chases a little bit too much, but it's improved from last year, which you want to see. You want to see improvement year over year. But overall, his entire batting profile has made improvements, getting to play half his games at Coors Field. Each month this season, he's bumped up his batting average, slugging percentage, and OPS. I love improvement. Good on you, Mickey Mantle. However, it's not all sunshine and roses, because Moniak rarely faces lefties and his home and away splits are disgusting. A 1.015 OPS at home and a .685 OPS on the road. He's definitely better suited for a daily transaction league where you can stick him in against lineups against righties at Coors Field instead of a weekly lock league where you might have to play him against the road, against lefties where he's going to sit, and his stats are just drastically worse. Starting August 1st, they play 14 of their next 20 games at home though. I like guys that have something to prove, feel like they got wronged and they want to shove it down their former employer. But again, his road, his home and away splits are just crazy. And I don't like that he's in a strict platoon role. That's going to really hurt his value in weekly lock leagues. But best case scenario, I can see him going on like a Brenton Doyle run to close out the year like he did last year. And don't forget, Doyle had crazy home and away splits too. And he still was super productive for a ton of fantasy managers down the stretch and into the playoffs. Honestly, this could all come crashing down. He's not getting enough at-bats and his road away splits again are trash, like I've said a million times already. You can't deny what he's doing currently though, ranked 48th in this last 30 days. Just know your league settings and put your bids in accordingly. And last up, we got a starting pitcher from the Miami Marlins, a guy I've talked about lots throughout the year, so it's a repeat. It's Edward Cabrera. I went back and forth about including Cabrera in the shallow league segment or the main section, and I opted to go with the main section. I had a whole write-up about Brandon Walter, but then his elbow had to go and cuck me and put him on IL with no immediate news of the severity, which is really scary when you're talking about elbows. It was some deep dive stuff too, classic Chris Investigator, sniper goggles on type of info. So maybe if it's a short stay, I'll get to use that down the road. But regardless, Cabrera's took his spot. Anyways, I am absolutely rambling today. Sorry, boys. So we're going to talk about Edward Cabrera, who, again, I think is a stud. And I guess I'm just fully back to being his #1 fan and supporter. He wasn't limited at all in his last outing after that little injury scare, which was a great sign. I hated that he got pulled at 5.2 innings. It totally screwed me from a quality start, and I'm sure it screwed a ton of people as well in quality start leagues. I would have loved to see him stay in there, get a chance to close out that inning. But he just looks motivated, looks prepared, and he's out there competing. And just look at this play. I think there's almost a 0% chance he makes this play in years past. Maybe potentially getting traded to a contender and getting to pitch in meaningful games in September and October has lit a fire up underneath him. Or maybe, and more likely, it's just that he's completely shelved that four-seamer for his sinker. He only threw the four-seamer 6 times against the Padres, and that's just the way it should be. It's worked wonders for Cabrera's entire approach, really helped his control issues. His profile is now more north to south instead of east to west. His curveball, slider, and changeup are disgusting, absolutely filthy. And after years of teasing me, letting me down, I am finally confident to roll Cabrera out there each and every week. What a moment for our bromance. Okay, and if you guys are feeling ripped off with the Cabrera pick again, since I have talked about him in the past, I'm giving you a bonus player right now, and that's the newly acquired third baseman for the New York Yankees, Ryan McMahon. So I have talked about road and away splits a lot in the player segment about Mickey, but I think it can be a little overrated or a little blown out of proportion when that player gets traded from the Rockies to a different team. There have been some studies that are coming out with all the elevation shift for the player going to and from Colorado that it affects their performance when they leave. Usually in their first series out of Colorado, you can see there's a dip in their production. I honestly don't know how much I'm buying into it. It looks like a little crazy tin hat science going on, and there are some stats or some comparisons to back that up. Just look at DJ LeMahieu. After he left Colorado to go to New York Yankees, he was great there for 3 to 4 years. His production didn't really dip at all. So the home and away splits aren't as predictable as everybody makes it out to be, but they can be a pretty good indicator. So I'm not dismissing it at all. I am just saying nothing is an exact science, of course. If you need help at corner infield spot, Ryan is a great dart flow. He should be playing every day for his defense. The Yankees need help with defense across the board there. It's going to be a great loaded lineup. I'm curious how you'll do with that short right porch in Yankee Stadium. I think you'll be all right. I think this could be a slight uptick in his fantasy value, leaving that terrible Colorado Rockies lineup, even though you are missing out on half your games being played at Coors. Let's see if that tin hat science has an effect with McMahon. Okay, boys, now it's time for the shallow league segment, and all these percentages are going to be based off Yahoo, and you know how it is. I'm not going to highlight a player over 60% owned, so it's going to be for people in 8-man leagues, 10-man leagues, and some shallower 12-man leagues, so make sure to check this out, because some of these guys could be floating around your wire, and I think they could be difference makers in the second half of the season. Okay, first up, let's get a banger right out of the way. A guy who just qualifies for this list at 59%, and probably by the time I release this video, he's going to be over 60%, but whatever, he's at 59% now, so we're going to talk about him, and that's Addison Barger off the Toronto Blue Jays. And man, he is on a heater right now. He's been playing so well. Everything under the hood is fantastic. He's barely sitting against lefties. He's only sat against stud lefties in the last few weeks or so, only missing 4 of the last 20 games, so he's definitely earned himself an everyday role in that Toronto Blue Jays lineup, who is just mashing the ball lately. Look like one of the hottest offenses in baseball right now. Barger should be a set and forget option in 12-team leagues, and his roster rate has to be higher than 59%. Next up, we have Matt Shaw, who's definitely a familiar name in the fantasy landscape. He's been up and down throughout the year, but he's on a heater right now, having home runs in 3 of his last 5 games, while also picking up a couple steals too, really showcasing and demonstrating that power speed threat that we all really hope that he'd fully come into this year. We all know he has an underlying talent and upside, so it wouldn't put me past him that he's finally putting it all together consistently. But again, if we look deeper into his stats, he's just not hitting the ball hard at all. Only one of those home runs was over 100 miles per hour. And I know a home run's a home run, but if we look at his other game logs as well, all his batted balls really aren't that hard at all. I don't know about you guys, but that sounded a little sus to me there. He's not getting a lot of pop in that bat that we all really want to have consistent fantasy success. So I'm not saying he's some must grab guy. Pause this video, run to your waiver wire, grab him right now. I don't think he's that, at least at this point. But again, I just love upside. I love that potential, and he's just oozing with it. I really don't know if there's any better lottery tickets than Matt Shaw in 12-team leagues right now. If I can find a way to get him on my bench and see if this production is going to somewhat stick, I'm trying to. And maybe this is just an L take. Maybe the Cubs had another bat at the deadline and Shaw's not playing every day and he's practically useless. I'm curious what you guys think. Let me know down below what you guys think about Matt Shaw's rest of season outlook this year. Next up, we're going Dylan Cruz at 49% rostered. Another young guy that's coming off the IL very soon. He's expected to start his rehab assignment this weekend. Now, he's one of the unluckier hitters this year, evidenced by both his expected WOBA and expected batting average being 70 points higher than his actuals. Add in that his BABIP is around 230 when the major league average is closer to 300, and we should expect some positive regression to close out the year. Cruz has great bat speed, good barrel percentage, and good exit velocity. You just like to see him cut his strikeout rate down 4 or 5%, get in that low 20s to really help elevate his fantasy floor. But again, Dylan Cruz is a young guy with the potential for a power speed combo, and I think he could be a real difference maker to close out the second half of the season. Next up, we have Navole Marte, a guy I have talked about and mentioned a lot on this channel. I am a little biased toward him. I do like him as a player, maybe because he was initially signed by the Mariners and one of the Mariners' top prospects before they dealt him for that Luis Castillo trade years back. Maybe that's why I'm biased, because I'm a Mariners homer. But regardless of that, if we take a step back now and look at all his production, his post-roids production, if we just eliminate the disastrous 2024 season where he got busted for juicing and all those mental obstacles or hurdles that he probably had to battle through to close out that year, that I guaranteed affected his play and affected his game that year. He's just a young kid. We're all human, and that was a ton of outside noise and a ton of outside scrutiny that he had to deal with. This isn't me giving him a pass for what he did by any means. I still think it was wrong. You got to play the game fair. I'm just saying, if we micro zoom in on that 2024 season, I think it's a little unfair just to project that's how the rest of his career was going to be. I think he has a lot more upside and a lot more potential than what we saw that year. Now, that was an absolute ramble. Oh my God. But if we actually get into some stats or what he's doing this year, Marte is chasing significantly less on pitches outside the zone, which in return has decreased his whiff percentage since he's choosing to swing at better pitches. And his strikeout percentage is still maintaining at that 17 mark, down significantly from the 31% last year and more in line with his promising 2023 season at 20%. He is top of the league bat speed, and his expected stats are pretty similar to his actuals. I think he's set up nicely to have a very productive second half of the season in that Cincinnati Reds lineup and that nice home ballpark that they play in. And last up, we got Chandler Simpson, and it still amazes me that his roster percentage is under 40%. Like, do people just not need steals out there? Is everyone punting steals? Like, I don't get it. What's going on? He just picked up 3 steals the other game, making it 4 so far in this week. And if you're in a head-to-head weekly lock league, this guy is single-handedly going to win you steals each week. I know he's a 0 in the power department, slap hitting his way to first base, and all his power metrics are the worst in the league, which is kind of incredible. It's a feat in itself. But at the end of the day, we don't want him for power. We want him to rack up hits and just rack up those steals. And Simpson is not disappointing. Okay, now we're on to the pitchers, and the first pitcher up is going to be a repeat, just like the double P's in his name, Landon Roop off the San Francisco Giants. So yes, we did talk about this guy last week, and he continued to have success in his next outing against Atlantis. That's why I'm highlighting him here again, because his roster rate didn't really change at all. Love his continued approach against lefties with the sinker, changeup, and curveball down low. He can still get in trouble if the curveball hangs up a little too much, but I think that will just come with time. Roop also started to throw cutters to lefties as well, and a couple of them were hard hit balls, but I kind of liked it. I kind of liked the approach for long term, so I'm very intrigued to see if he sticks with that. His floor is so solid right now. He's had back-to-back outings with a 33% up CSW. His roster rate in the low 30s is just too low in my opinion. This should be a lot higher, boys. Next up, we have Trevor Rogers, and man, has he come full circle. We started him in the deep league segment a couple times. He continued to pitch well. We put him in the main waiver wire segment, segment, continued to pitch well, and now look at him. He's in the shallow league segment, completing that grand slam, baby. We should acknowledge it, and I think it's the first time that's happened in this channel. I'm not 100% positive. We'd have to go back and double check, but let's name it something. Let's call it the number 2 sports grand slam. Rory, move out of the way. Here comes Mr. Rogers. We'll keep going with Joe Boyle. Now, normally I'd put him in the main waiver wire section based on his roster rate, but since he's already been there, I don't want to double up and talk about him again, so that's why I'm at least including him in the shallow league segment. The big news is that Taj Bradley finally got sent down to AAA, and Boyle should be the favorite, or Boyle should be expected to take over his starter's role. He's been used in bulk relief since returning to the big leagues with okay results. You'd like to see more strikeouts, but he's allowing minimal base runners, which is always positive, and his savant page is awesome. The Rays have really helped him this year with his control issues, which was a big thing, a big issue in his past. He has a high 90s, close to 100-mile-per-hour heater, so the boy chucks gas, a tight slider, and a pretty disgusting splitter that sits at like 93, 94 miles per hour that he just peppers down low in the bottom half of the strike zone. The guy is a monster. I talked about him a lot more in a video in June. If you want to watch it, it looks like this right here. I imagine his roster rate will jump 20 to 30% if the news does come out that Boyle's taking over that starter's role from Bradley. I really like his upside the rest of the season if that happens. Legit enormous potential with Boyle to add somebody like that to your rotation at this point of the year. Next up, we have a guy I've talked about a bunch before in this column, and that's Ryan Nelson off the Arizona Diamondbacks, and he has one of the greatest four-seamers in the entire MLB right now. I keep waiting for him to get imploded because his secondaries just aren't that great sometimes. He just doesn't have enough feel for it, and he really needs to add at least one more to his arsenal, but he keeps pitching well, so I'm going to keep putting him in here as long as that four-seamer is just destroying batters. He has had a fairly easy schedule his last 4 or 5 starts, so his next matchup's against the Tigers, which I'm really looking forward to. If he goes out there and is successful again, I think he'll be a must-add across all leagues. I'll be really intrigued to see how he does in that game. Okay, and before we move on to our next segment, Bailey was just so stoked about this. Nick freaking Kurtz, man. What a night tonight. I'm filming this. He just hit 4 home runs, went 6 for 6. He's a bona fide superstar. I hate when people take victory laps about picks that they made and yada, yada, yada. So I'm not going to do that. But I am going to say I picked him up April 20th. So yeah, sure, whatever. I'll dunk on you guys for a second. But in all seriousness, this guy is insane. Is he like the top 1 bag for Dynasty right now or pushing to it already? It's crazy. He's unbelievable. Okay, boys, now it's time for the recap segment. We're going to go over the video I posted on July 12th. And again, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on these guys. We're just going to quickly go over how they've done the last couple weeks, see how they're doing, and see if there's going to be a punishment or not. Okay, first up, we had Colt Keith. And I definitely gave him a good old jinx because he was on a heater right up until I mentioned him. And now he's been ice cold. He's been colder than my cold plunge. I want to see how he hits out of it, but I understand if you need to let him go, the inconsistency can kill you in weekly lock leagues. No more singing for me. I mentioned this guy in the shallow league segment. We had a good spiel about him here, so I won't talk about him anymore. But the number 2 sports grand slam winner, baby. Next up, we had Cam Schlittler. And honestly, he pitched a lot better than that box score indicated against the Blue Jays. Now, the Blue Jays have been one of the hottest, if not the hottest team in baseball lately. Their batters have just been crushing the ball left, right, and center. So in that game, he got squeezed a little bit, but his fastball was hitting 99 miles per hour, and there seemed to be no lingering effect from that injury scare. I really like this guy. Not sure what the Yankees are going to do when Heel comes back, but regardless of that fact, I am super high on him for 2026. Next up, we had Abner Uribe. All this guy does is chuck gas and pick up holds. Really sneaky, great value guy in a holds league. Almost a must roster type of dude. We keep going with Bryce Matthews from the Houston Astros. I was worried about his swing and miss tendencies and how that would translate to the majors, and it's kind of what I expected, being around 5% higher than in the minors, sitting at a gross 37.5 through 32 plate appearances. He has shown off that raw, untapped potential, untapped power with 3 home runs already, but he just will not be able to have continued level success or any consistency if he's striking out at almost a 40% clip. It just won't happen for him. That needs to come down fast, and it can because it is still such a small sample size. So every plate appearance that he doesn't get a strikeout, that rate will drop pretty quickly. It's just still a big red flag for me, like I mentioned. I got to see some improvements quickly. Next up, we had Owen Casey, and nothing's changed with him. He's still demolishing AAA pitching, The big thing for him here is if he's going to get dealt at the deadline, where he's going to be able to get a chance to play every day for a new team. And last up, we had Jurickson Profar, and I think this is the second time that I mentioned him. His underlying stats are concerning, but it is a relatively small sample size, and he's still contributing in other ways with runs, OBP, and hits. I still love his spot in that order. Leading off for Atlanta behind that big three of Acuna, Olsen, and Riley. I love it. He should be able to get knocked in a ton of times. He should pick up some hits, and he should show some power over the second half of the season. So just do a little recap there. Going Keith bad. Obviously, we're doing Rogers good. We're doing Cam Schlittler good. We're doing Uribe good. We're going Matthews good, because I did say be super cautious with him with that intensely high strikeout rate, and that's what's happened. Casey's indifferent. It was still a stash coming up to the deadline. And I'm still going Profar good, or I'll say Profar okay. So with that being said, easy call from the booth, under 2 minutes, no challenges, don't even try it. No punishment, baby. All right, guys, so that's everything for this video. As always, I appreciate everyone hanging out here. Drop in comments down below. I'll reply to every single comment, every single video. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you hated this video, let me know down below what you'd like to see different or what you'd like to see change. It's not going to hurt my feelings. Hit that sub button if you want. That'd be cool. Take it easy. Have a good weekend, and I'll see you guys next week.